global order. I'm Hindol Sengupta. I'm delighted that General Raj Shukla has joined me today in conversation. We are going to discuss, and I'm going to hold up the book. We're going to discuss this book, Civil Military Fusion as a Metric of National Power and Comprehensive Security. This is the book that he's just written, which had a wonderful release in Delhi a few days ago. We're going to discuss the theme of this book and many of its ideas. General Shukla, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Hindol. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Let me begin by contextualizing. You're obviously talking about the need for civil military fusion in India and, of course, giving historical perspective of what's happening around the world. I want you to begin by talking a little bit about the global context. This kind of, a lot of people are excited or alarmed, as the case may be, about what's happening with this company called Palantir, right? But this kind of fusion has a long history in America. Perhaps we could begin by putting that context and then come to India and China.
Yeah, absolutely. Before that, just let me do a bit of marketing about this book. Do buy and read it. It will not only be interesting, but read it and critique it, tear it to shreds. It should set a conversation going about the need or otherwise for civil military fusion. Intel, if I can just make a few observations before I come to the USA.
Oh.
I got commissioned into the Indian military in 1982.
Right.
And my experience, at least from my first 20, 30 years, I used to wonder what were these silos about. There was the technological silo, DRDO. There was the military silo. Within the military silo, Air Force, Army, Navy, private sector, government. And I used to keep wondering, why can't we talk to each other? Why can't we converge? But we took great pride in our cycle. The army, saying that this is land wars are the future, Air Force, air wars. But it was pretty evident that that was not the case. And
without quoting anybody, General, this is going on even today. I just want to point out, this war of editorials that's going on. I don't want to name anyone, but sadly it's going on even today.
Absolutely. So it is this tribalism that must collapse. CMF is this concept which collapses tribalism in the national interest, because these silos may be unproductive, but they are, let me say, a lot of personal institutional gains. There is profit in status quo. There is immediate loss in change, but there is long-term gain in economic productivity, technological excellence, and strategic heft and fusion. So it is not a narrow military argument. I make this argument in a larger sense. You spoke about the Americans. Before the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Americans practiced what they called CMI, civil military integration. So Ford made cars and satellites. Chrysler made cars and missiles. General Mills, which was a cereal company, made cereals, artillery, and inertial guidance systems. Amazing. Then the Americans made this fatal mistake and fell into this trap, dual trap, civil and military. And the Chinese embraced it. So while the Americans were regressing, the Chinese were progressing. In my research, I was amazed to learn that President Xi set it off in a commonsensical aphorism when he said, "Why build walls of granite between cylinders of excellence?" Look how commonsensical. And then proceeded to chair a civil military development commission. I was amazed. He personally chairs it. And the day-to-day driver of civil military fusion is the Prime Minister of China. So see what they go and do. I wonder if you were at my book launch. I gave that example of how they purchased the Varyag. Today, China is a 3 aircraft carrier navy. It has got electromagnetic power. It boasts of stealth platforms flying from the aircraft carriers. But in 1997-98, they didn't have a single aircraft carrier. They were scouting for technical know-how. And what do? They lay their eyes on this Varyag, which is a discarded Soviet cruiser lying in one of the Ukrainian shipyards. And they know that if they make a military pitch for the carrier, they won't get it. So they set up this basketball player from the Guangzhou military region, Zhu Zhengping. They set him up as a business tycoon, looking to buy a carrier for a floating casino in Macau. And because to refurbish his image, the Huaxai Bank buys him a $30 million villa in Hong Kong with plush offices in Kyiv and Beijing. I mean, it's amazing. And he's told he goes there and he finally manages to secure a deal for the carrier. But they tell him, no, not good enough. We want the blueprints. Without the blueprints, they wouldn't have been able to get these successive carriers, Fujian and all that. So he gets not only the carrier, but also the blueprints by fronting as a business tycoon. Now, once he gets it, the Varyag is stored or it sails from Kiev to Ankara, where it gets stuck with Turkish intelligence and a whole lot of Turkish bureaucracies. Now, to pull the carrier out of this imbroglio, no less than President Jiang Zemin himself flies into Ankara, pulls the carrier out, and of course signs a larger deal about market access. So I'm saying, while we are stuck in DPPs and DPMs, look at Chinese acquisition. It is so street smart. It lies at the convergence of strategic deception, state funding, commercial fronting, apex political intersection. So that is the way it is in China today. The Chinese State Shipbuilding Corporation is the poster child of civil military feud. It has 4 tiers. Tier 1 and 2 have ties with the PLA, 3 and 4 are commercial, but don't fool yourself. All the technology and the capital which comes into tiers 3 and 4 by clever design architecture is pumped into tiers 1 and 2. So concurrently, CSSC is driving global commerce, is also aspirations for a global navy. So will it surprise us that just last year, 2024, the CSSC built more shipping tonnage than the Americans have built since World War II, causing Trump now to get shipbuilding in America under the White House directly because the Americans were asleep. And the same CSSC is also powering a 500 ship global navy. It's going to be the largest by 2030. Now, the tragedy, Hindol, is this, that I recall my parents and all telling me ad lib about the concept of Saraswati, Lakshmi, or Durga commission. Look how brilliant. I know it is a hand-me-down wisdom, but I could trace it to any text. But look what it says. It says create centers of excellence in your academic institutions. Spend on R&D. I mean, Allahabad University was once the Oxford of the East, Nalanda. Top-class talent, which will churn out technology. And this talent and technology combo will create wealth, Lakshmi. And from that wealth, use some of it to nurse your instruments of power, Durga. So our ancient wisdom, metrics in China, metrics in USA, all tell us converge. But post-47 democracies, including India, started this, shall I say, less than wise metric of silos, civil, military, private sector, government, academia. Today you have a host of universities in India which are coming up, defense departments, not one military officer, not one. So everybody has mastered the art of the silo, which is what? Keep the jobs for us. But it is so silly in the long run because unless you converge, unless you cross-pollinate wisdom, ideas, you will trail global metrics. You can keep living in your silos. Also look at the larger sense, I wonder. I mean, see, we were told dual use.
Yeah.
The Americans keep lecturing on such a pack of nonsense. When the Silicon Valley, about 8-10 years back, on the dual use metaphor, distanced itself from the Pentagon, what did they do? They shared their top technologies with Chinese civilian firms. And Chinese civilian firms were mandated by law in China to share their technologies with the PLA. So the Americans were keeping a distance from their military, but passing on the technology to the Chinese. AI, see how the Chinese are so clairvoyant. They say in AI today, their strategy is what? Our strategy is still civil, military. Their strategy is in the civilian domain, have controls, perhaps for reasons of surveillance.
Hmm.
But military or in the strategic military sphere, for reasons of national interest, freewheeling, no controls. Let people develop the technologies. So at the end of the day, it is Sam, Dam, Dandabhed. National interest by means fair or foul. So I'm saying from the absolute practical mundane stuff to the profound, from your day-to-day transactions to deep issues of statecraft, civil military fusion makes a lot of sense. Why not? I'll give you one last example. Look at the Americans. Of course, their dollar underwrites global trade and commerce. It is the reserve frequency. But just think for a moment, Hindol, will the dollar be worth anything without the 800 military bases? That's the enforcement of the dollar. If the military power weakens, the dollar will weaken. If the bases disappear, the dollar will no longer be the reserve currency. So even in statecraft, guns versus butter is a puerile debate. The smart thing to do is to converge guns and butter. So everywhere I look, I mean, let me sum it this way. In my research, countries like China, USA, let me give you one last example of Israel. The recent strikes in Rising Lion and all that, I mean, they were wonderful. We saw the Israeli Air Force at its best. But the Israeli Air Force would be nothing without units 8, 200, 9, 300. What are they? Pure civilians, technology geeks, masters of EW, cyber, and space. These wraparound technologies which enable targeting. And they are so wonderful, these technologies, that Israeli int knew where Nasrallah was sleeping every night since 2006. They only took him out into 30th September 2024. It gives them this ability to make the Iranians, the Revolutionary Guard, convene a meeting of their Air Force, and once everybody is in, proceed to bomb it. What brilliant statecraft. So I'm saying civil military fusion in that very comprehensive sense needs to be studied. I'm not saying you copy China, you copy USA or Israel, but adapt it to your unique circumstance. But certainly one thing is very clear to me, these silos are wasteful. They just have to go. See, we are in the midst of this theaterization debate. Yes. Theaterization is the least about air power. Theaterization is about giving the theater commanders a quasi-diplomatic role. It is the brilliance of Mr. Jaishankar in Kargil, after the Kargil Review Committee, where he said, the Indian military must abandon its defensive crouch, start looking beyond the LC and the LAC. So the DIA, the boss of the Defense Intelligence Agency, was supposed to give you intelligence from the military perspective. And the theater commander was to shape it by looking beyond Pakistan into Afghanistan, into West Asia, this side, Bangladesh, Myanmar, the maritime theater commander to IPACOM, so that it is not to jackboot around the world, but to to use your power in sensible ways, so that you deal with the threat before it lands into to your borders. So much common sense, something like the what was that yag, the Ashwamedh yag. So it is in that very sophisticated sense that you have theaterization. And we have just, boiled it down to that entire issue of air power. Air power is just one speck in that whole business. We have to move from theaterization to integration to digital integration, which is a challenge of its own, and thence to cross-pollination, and then to fusion. There is no reason why in a 21st century strategic military framework, the Ministry of Defense does not have domain specialists. They should be there in the office of the CDS, perhaps in the Raksha Mantri. The NSCS was supposed to be 50% government, 50% non-government. We have regressed. We made it all government. So everywhere you need to cross-pollinate, you need to fuse. And at the end of the day, civil military fusion now has broken free of, the narrow connotation that the term connotes. Civil military. It is actually talent from anywhere, talent from everywhere. So talent, attributes of any kind, all quivers in your, all arrows in the quiver of your statecraft. Diplomacy, civil servants, the military, startups, thought leaders, domain specialists, business tycoons, coming together sensibly in the national security interest, which is, of course, economic productivity, technological excellence, is also strategic heft. So that's really my argument from my study of models around the world, a peep into the past, and as I look into the future.
Obviously, General Shukla makes a lot of sense, also from a very, very recent experience in Operation Sindoor, where perhaps for the first time we also saw how, at a moment of conflict, it could even become a war of narratives fought by OSINT warriors, almost real time analyzing satellite imagery. I was talking to John Klein, the expert in space warfare from the US yesterday, and we were talking about this, that this kind of OSINT warfare is almost a new sort of pillar that's emerging. And these are all people. I mean, these many of these people who are doing this are essentially civilians. They are not people from the military or the services. They are doing it because they're interested, and some of them are very, very good. So, in a sense, there is a broader atmosphere of understanding security, even among the civilian population, that perhaps strengthen the fusion that you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, you look at Ukraine, or let me ask you, World War II, when you think of World War II, you think of Patton, you think of Montgomery. Uh, 71, you might recall Manekshaw,
That's right.
Bhagat Singh, 65, Harbaksh. Who are the generals in Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, offhand, I don't know.
Elon Musk, Alex Carp,
Correct.
Lucky.
Correct.
That's the way it's going. Without
Correct.
Elon Musk, Starlinks, nothing would have happened. You mentioned Palantir. Palantir is not only the talent of Alex Karp, it is strategic. Palantir was set up by a venture capital fund of the CIA.
That's right.
CIA. So, we have to shed our innocence. This is
Mhm.
how the world operates. Palmer Lucky, he's a technological genius. So in Ukraine, see what's happening. The war fighter, the technologist, the entrepreneur, the theater of war, and the marketplace are coming together. Marketplace. What have the Americans done in consequence? Then I'll come to Sindhu. I mean, Trump and Hexit asked the military that why are we spending $975 billion and losing in every war? We don't seem to have the talent. They had no answer. I believe Eric Skimmett was consulted. Eric Skimmett, by the way, enjoys a top secret security clearance,
That's right.
almost
Yeah,
almost equivalent to the chairman joint chiefs. So he's
that's right.
privy to
Yeah.
our plans and is now fashioning technology around it. He, I believe, is rebuilding the American nuclear posture in an AI mold. Look at that. And so they said, sir, we cannot share our op plans with the civilians. He said, why, sir? They are civilians. So they said, all right, one order, the famous order which, Trump signs with his pen. The CTOs of Palantir, I think Thinking Machines Lab, uh, Scale AI, and one more. I just forget his name. Let me see if I can find it here. Have been inducted into the American military as lieutenant colonels. And they've been told now share the data with them, and now they will give you the technologies. And what have they done? I'll tell you. In a month's time, Trump said, look at the fluff in the budget. So they picked up the Black Hawk program, maintenance program of Black Hawk, which was being done by traditional vendors. And they picked one piece, the external fin of the fuel tank. And they were aghast because they are technologists in the business. And they were paying for one fin, the vendor was charging the American military $144,000. Now, these are men from the techno commercial space. They smell something fishy. So they took the part using 3D printing, they reverse engineered it, validated it in 40 days because they have the confidence to validate it. They are technologists. If you tell me, you scare me. If I am just a non-technology, you say, sir, fin hai, bada important part hai, sir, jahaj ka. Agar kuch ho gaya, these chaps, they said, nonsense. And tell me, Indian, what is the cost of that part? Approved by Get 201, the best technological minds in the world, $60. 1/44th. This was the fluff in the American military. This is what silos do. They are mischievously crafted. मैं टेक्नोलॉजिस्ट हूं, मुझे क्वेश्चन मत करो, फिर मैं ये भी करूंगा. I have no evidence, but by the way, when I was the army commander and I said 3D printing is so useful, why don't we use it? A big study was done, and you know what the conclusion was? So 3D printing is brilliant, but it is not cost effective. They are using 3D printing to depress costs. And with the success in Black Hawk, they've now expanded it to Bradley. And I think on another part, it was a knob which you scroll to use data. They have brought down the monthly cost. The Pentagon was paying some $188,000 to $3,000. Look at the savings across platforms just because you have got talent from outside, technologists from outside. So this is fusion. A mundane example. Now let's take Sindhu. Look at what happened.
Before you go to Sindhu, General, if I may ask you, some people may say that while it has worked with a few top technologists in America, there is always a risk of leakage in this sort of interaction, in the sense that the people you bring on board, there might be, issues that are top secret, there might be leakage. And this is something, and I ask you this because this is a classic Indian response. Whenever in doubt, people say, oh, no, this is a great security risk and therefore we can't do anything. And I wanted you to reflect upon.
This is classic nonsense. Classic nonsense. See, if I'm a military man,
Yes.
if I leak secrets, I'm subject to the Army Act. Hindol Sengupta can be brought into that NDA, non-disclosure. You sign documents, and if you
Violate
it, same action on you. What is the proof that I am a greater patriot than you? I mean, the assumption may be true, but is there any proof? So just as the Americans can trust Eric Skimmett, why can't we trust Sridhar Vembu? Or say Nandan Nilinkani or somebody of that kind? I mean, I'm just making these names up.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
They are icons in their own right.
Correct.
They are Indians. They just chose a different field. ये silos की बात है और जो ये बातें करते हैं उनको पता भी है, अच्छी तरह पता है. They still trot out this nonsense.
No, that's exactly what I wanted you to respond to, because I wanted you on camera to sort of speak about this so that there is a clear response to this, because of course this is classic Indian nonsense.
This is
talk about
not Indian. This was the American nonsense.
Exactly. Yes.
This is what Trump and Exit have shown.
Right.
This is absolute idiocy.
For Operation Sindoor, you were about to talk about.
So I'll give you one example. See, we can keep wasting our time in these debates. So what did the Chinese do?
Yes.
2003 to 2007, they saw that in all these emerging critical technologies, USA was the leader. 60 out of 65 it led. So what did they do? Classic CMF instruments. 1,000 talents plan and diaspora strategy. So picking the best scientists, Nobel laureates. They've got some, I think, 40,000 scientists and 1 million researchers. They picked up the best minds, Nobel laureates, winners of the Alan Turing Medal, and get them to develop technologies for both civil and military, because they lie at the cusp of civil-military fusion. Because of their investments in the CMF instruments, 2019 to 23, who leads? 57 out of 65 China leads. 60, 65, 57, 65. So they have practical, demonstrable uses. China is today in the technological game. It has created the strategic choke points. Rare earths is only the beginning. You see them unfold in area after area. So we can keep wasting our time in these debates. The other countries aren't. So either we act or we keep wasting our time in these debates. And you forget the Americans and the Israelis. What was Saraswati Lakshmi Durga Commissioner? What is that? That is Indian. 400% Indian. Wohi to kar lo. So actually, this is, I think, these silos are a post-47 construct for some strange reason. And, if I may just risk an assertion, the Chinese are beating all democracies, including India, on the strength of military-civil fusion. That's one of these surmises in my book. And I've, given example after example to say so. So we have to get... Now look at Sindoor. Yes. I have never seen such an overwhelming military victory wasted in poor strategic communications.
Correct.
See, I don't understand why nobody asks. Okay, you ask us questions. We are in a democracy, we'll answer. Ask the Pakistani air chief, how many aircraft did you lose, sir? बताओ उससे तो पूछो उससे कोई पूछता ही नहीं है. And also ask him what is the job of air power? Is it to bring down each other's aircraft or at the end of the day retain control of the skies? Who had control of the Pakistani skies on 10th May, my dear sir? Please let me know. Where were your J-10s and J-17s? Why were they scampering backwards towards Afghanistan? What happened to Pakistan Chinese collusivity on 10th May? Those are the real questions. Nobody asked. And by the time Shashi Tharoor traveled to the West, the narrative had hardened. It had become the first night, only the first night. I happened to be in Washington the same week that Asim Munir was there. I had gone with Carnegie and I was surprised. Munir was the toast of all Washington think tanks. I asked my Indian friends there, where are ours? Why are we not here? They said, "Sir, aap log aate nahi." Now, I don't know what the story is. So we need a DG Stratcom in the office of the CDS. In my view, a deputy NSA looking after strategic communications in the NSCS. It cannot
Forget
be
other
left
people not.
to reach.
Forget other people. I put to you, General, forget other people not asking these questions. Indian media, forget outsiders. The Indian media till date has never really asked this question.
That's what surprises me. So it has to be fair. You, of course, ask me, but unse bhi to पूछिए. And they're getting away with it. So strategic communications, you can't one fine day after an event say, it's not about quest gather. The ideation, the execution, and the narration have to be developed together. See, there is sophistication here. Look at the Chinese. What did they do? In their strategic communications was two-pronged. They told the world, peaceful rise. And we know what it was. But to their own cadre, they said, 100-year marathon. In 100 years, we have to beat the Americans. Their bureaucrats, their military officers, their politicians, their party cadres. In Singapore University and all, they have sophisticated narratives on this. They may be an autocracy, but they are a very smart meritocracy. So their narratives were very sharp. हमारे यहाँ ये थोड़ी ना कि भाई वो after the event 4 लोगों को इकट्ठा कर दो. You have to be in this space for long. You have to, the DG strategic communications has to be the right-hand man of the CDS, knowing everything, knowing his mind, knowing the mind of the Rakshaman, possibly the Prime Minister, so that he develops that narrative in a sophisticated manner. On a lighter note, the DG ISPR, current DG ISPR, उसकी अगर आप English सुन ले, it is grammatically wrong. But confidence पूरा है, BBC पे, CNN पे. So, his confidence exceeds his competence, while we seem to be shy and coy.
I want to go to a point that the Raksha Mantri made at your book launch when he spoke about how this idea of division of labor, which we hold very dear to our hearts in India, must end because it is fundamentally a silo idea.
Absolutely.
And this idea, and there has to be, we have to look beyond this division of labor idea. Perhaps you could reflect upon those comments of the Raksha Mantri.
No, I think they're entirely appropriate. I mean, if this idea, I'd heard of it before, I put it into my book. It's another way of approaching the same thing. So what is this division of labor? You see, when we were young, we were actually told, your job is to fight. Don't talk of technologies. वो आएगा. कभी नहीं आया, हमने बेवकूफी कर. Look at HAL. HAL at one time was headed very often by air marshals who went on to become chief. I remember Air Marshal Katre, Air Marshal P.C. Lal. It was sensible that the consumer was integrated into that, the whole process of manufacturing. Air Marshal Arjinder Singh was an engineer who became a pilot. Today, the chief of the Royal Air Force is an engineer, not a pilot. So you see how engineers, pilots, they were all integrated into that frame. Now we've regressed. HAL ka apna silo, hamara apna silo. And it is very complex. We also have to acknowledge the importance of talent. I am telling you today, the AMCA will not be built unless the HAL chairman is given flexible recruitment methodologies. He should be able to hire the 4 best minds in aerospace if we have to get the AMCA engine going. Or we'll keep repeating it. We have to have the humility to understand this. And here I don't blame him alone, because he should be allowed this flexibility. I mean,
How
respectfully,
optimistic are
I
you?
laugh.
How optimistic are you that he will get the flexibility?
I mean,
Hopefully, one day. Hopefully, yeah,
I'm making a case for it. He should make a case for it. You should make a case for it.
absolutely.
Only then will we get it. And I don't mean talent only in terms of money. Either we get, nurture talent the way ISRO does,
Hmm.
which is a very high degree of commitment and, faster projects, faster clearances. What we have done, and I don't blame the DRDO and HL alone, we have made them work in these mediocre silos. ये जो सरकारी टाइप है ना, that I'll come as a scientist, now I'll build on technologies or leisure, हो गया तो हो गया, नहीं हुआ तो नहीं हुआ, फिर retire होके pension लूंगा. This doesn't work. You see whom you're competing against. You're competing against Elon Musk, who people say is the next bright engineer after Edison. आपका मुकाबला उनके साथ है in these high tech domains. So civil military fusion is also an argument about talent, pratibha. It has to be talent which we need to respect, either by way of monetary compensation or other ways. See, startups and all. There are some very smart startups, you must get some of them on your show, who have got orders from US Spacecom, from American companies. There is Swayash in space, there is um, Vrinda Kapoor, Third Eye Tech, there is Rajat Sethi in quantum. So there are very great minds. But in the ecosystem doesn't allow them to grow. I think Kishore Mehwani makes this lovely point that the Indians beat the Chinese in the most competitive human laboratory in the world, USA. He says that the Indians in India are allowed to
Work freely.
take their strategic productivity to even 50% of their Indian counterparts in USA. India's GDP will be $35 trillion.
Hmm.
Indian military today needs the Silicon Valley. The US Army Futures Command has gone and set up a Futures Command in Austin, Texas. Why Austin, Texas? Because it's Elon Musk country. They were mandated. Get the innovation into your blood. That innovation ecosystem must come into your blood. Risk taking. And what have they done? 3,000 academic hires at rockstar pay. 3,000 academic hires in technologies and other domains, and not just technologies. Why does India not produce somebody like Chris Miller, who writes on the geopolitics of chips, ship wars, the geopolitics of space? We have to do all this kind of stuff. A comprehensive look at national security. And national security doesn't mean military defense. National security here means economic productivity, technological excellence, and strategic heft.
Let's talk a little bit about, since you're talking about the US, let's talk a little bit about the company everybody's interested in, General Palantir. And I wanted you to do a little bit of a deep reflection on Palantir. Very interesting company. A lot of people in the world, even today, barring the fact that it has deep CIA connections, barring the fact that, of course, its CEO, leads a very reclusive life and so on and so forth, don't entirely understand what Palantir does and why it is so strategic. But of course, more and more there's news how critical it is becoming in the American security system. Perhaps you could reflect a little bit on Palantir.
So I followed Palantir closely. I also read that book by Alex Karp called Technology Republic, where he makes this argument that where America lost was that its brightest technological minds started building these internet apps, photo sharing apps, while the Chinese technological minds were building national security. So, in this book called Technology Republic, he makes this argument that these digital wizards of today, the sharpest minds in Silicon, must abandon what he calls their soft beliefs, embrace hard power, and build technologies for national security. So, he's making an open case for it. Now, whether it is funded by the CIA, I mean, that's the American way of doing it. Why not? Where will our startups get their funds from? Look at the competition. In the real world, in China, if you are a civilian startup, you may get your first order from the military. If you are good, I will hold your hand till commercial viability. And once you start playing in the market, I will tell you, friend, how about partnering with me? I will unlimited funds. Why we have to beat that American startup lurking in the background? It is strategic. In our case, we make it L1, DPP. Choice is ours. Choice is ours. और हम लोग, our ancestors told us, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. National interest by means fair or foul. So why don't we do it?
This L1 has done more damage. I mean, it's very funny that, every IS officer I've spoken to, everybody agrees that L1 does great damage, but nobody can do anything about it. That's very, very strange.
I'll tell you, everybody can do everything about it. I don't know why they don't do it. If you read the GFR, it says nothing about L1. So our founding fathers or whoever wrote the initial document, it has just 2 points. That get stuff at competitive rates, and there should be no corruption, no public waste. That is all the GFR says. We have ourselves very stupidly reduced it to L1. It is not L1. The system is L1T1. So before those, if there are 4 people in the fray, I first choose which is technologically the best. And the 2 technologically the best, I put them to L1. But here, instead of respecting human discretion to say that Hindol is good, Raj Shukla is an idiot, I say both are equal and let the L1 win. And the idiot Raj Shukla quotes a lower price than you and wins. The system is not that. We make excuses. We have become slaves to L1 because over the years we have stopped respecting human discretion. I've seen many of my colleagues, my superiors not do it. My bosses used to tell me rules are for fools. We have now started doing this. I myself, as the Army commander, it's been my experience, both as Commandant War College, Army Commander RTRAC. I called the IFA many times, explained to him, he agreed with me. And we did follow this model right through. My chief of staff agreed with me. So I don't quite buy this.
Okay.
We are slaves of L1, unless we choose to be slaves of L1. Now, this is in the limited areas that I have operated in the military and all. Maybe the bureaucrats have a different experience, but even if they have, now that you are losing everywhere, you know L1 is the cause. Does it not make sense to change it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying something.
So till when, I mean, can the Indian cricket team be made on the basis of L1? It has to be H1. So if you have to win, now this is the whole point. See, very diligent civil servants tell me कि सर हमने फाइल मूव कर दी, हम इतना ही कर सकते हैं. आप इतना ही करोगे तो इतना ही मिलेगा. You have to beat the Chinese in their strategic military competition. You can either move files or you can win the competition. And now this is what has led, it is exactly this kind of woke logic that produced Trump. And now Trump is saying, all right, tell me which rule you want to be axed here, I do it. And he's doing it time after time. And common sense wise, you take it Hindle, nothing will happen. Because he's doing good stuff. So I really don't quite understand where this whole L1 thing comes from. In fact, I would make an appeal. The FADSA, the topmost financial man, if he churns out a 20-page document to say that L1 and all this is not making sense, we need to do it. And it comes from him with the professional expertise of the IFAs, who will not sign off on it? It has become one excuse where the IFA keeps doing that old thing. And I have no quarrel, but if you keep doing that old thing, all our projects, AMCAR, DRDO, वही होगा, which that poet said कि उम्र भर गालिब वही भूल करता गया, दांत चेहरे पे था, आईना साफ करता गया. आप आईना साफ करते रहोगे तो दाग कहां से जाएगा? क्योंकि दाग तो चेहरे पे है.
I want to move this conversation to another country, which has always been, and since we're so close to this country and have been, especially in the last decade, I wonder why we don't learn more from this country. Israel, as you pointed out early in the conversation, also is a classic example of how this civil military fusion really works and works very well. I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on the Israeli experience and what we could learn from them.
So, see, Israel is a very good, is an entirely appropriate comparison. You look at India's threats today. Take your Western horizons. It is not just Pakistan, it is Pakistan, China. And I was just telling you that where were the J10, J17 scampering? But it is also a reality. The Pakistanis are in talks. Last time Wang Yi was in Islamabad, he had a 3 hour meeting with the air chief. The air chief also was in Washington. They are looking for things like stealth. Now, if the Chinese give them J20s, J35s, if they give them those HQ-19s, which means they will be able to intercept the BrahMos and the KJ-500, the air balance may just turn in 6 months. That's how precarious the air balance is there. And they are also getting huge Turkish technologies. Now, Turkey is a master in drones. At the recent signing of the truce between Afghanistan and Pakistan in Qatar, Turkey was in attendance. So Turkey is a player here. Now with that Saudi pact, it makes things even more difficult than us. And now that Trump is a little annoyed, American support may not be that much forthcoming. So there is a problem along the Western horizons. Along the Eastern horizons, Hindol, I see a new national security reality. I have been studying that area very well. There's one lady called Rami Desai who's got great insights into that place. And my conclusion from my conversations with her are that this chaos in Myanmar and Bangladesh is a new national security reality. We have to have a military response to it. There's no time to go into the details, but it is a huge new national security reality. And if this were not enough, the military component of the power differential with China is $450 billion year on year. So you see, one is the budgetary aspect. The other, I make this case in my book, many of these CMF endeavors are budget agnostic. They are merely attitudinal, ideational, cultural. तो अगर हम पैसा भी नहीं लगाएंगे और culturally भी नहीं change करेंगे, we have nobody but ourselves to blame. And I've already told you in the IOR, you have got a 450 ship navy, which once it breaks out of the first island chain, is going to land up in the IOR. It's not going to patrol Chinese coastlines. And on top of it, Ukraine, I mean, we've had no time. The changes in the character of war are the most profound in recorded history. Now, the Indian strategic military system has to face up to all these challenges. I ask you, and through you, your viewers, is this threat environment not even more challenging than the one that Israel faces? Israel was just proxies, Hamas and all. We have got China, a superpower, which is not in Latin America. It's on your doorstep. So we really have to step up our game in national security and perhaps embrace many of the good practices of Israel. Now, not we can't do everything, but let me tell you what the Israelis do. Firstly, because they have a conscripted society. So somebody like you who's a journalist, or say somebody like me who's working in the IT sector, you would go back every year 2 months to fly. I would go back every year 2 months to do patrolling or 2 months to sail. So they are naturally interfaced in the civil military sense in that sense, in a societal way. That is one part of it. Then I've told you about this 8200, 9300. See what they do. The brightest minds in high school and college are got into these units. They are given very good pay and told, don't worry, you want to serve for 2 years, fine, 3 years, fine, 5 years, fine, lifetime, fine. So you decide to leave at 5 years. You go to Silicon Valley. They maintain contacts with you. They get all your insights, your knowledge, and your technologies. It's a 8200, 9300 is a citadel of talent with a global footprint. Israelis all over the world. They don't waste their time in classes. They make them work on live projects. Stuxnet, supply chain capture in Lebanon. Nasrullah ko udana hai. Live. No wonder the success rates are so high. And for a country which is so small, I mean, once you challenge it like the Hamas did on the 7th of October 2023, look at how they've altered the geopolitical construct in West Asia. Syria, Lebanon, Hamas, Gaza. Now, not everything that they do is perfect. I wouldn't agree with some of the stuff they've done in Gaza. But in the whole strategic military sense, they have changed, as I said, the geopolitical landscape. Now, this is what they are capable of. In our case, I'm saying, develop such strategic, technological, military heft so that we have combat overmatch with Pakistan. Mexico doesn't think of fingering USA. Pakistan ki economy is 1/10 of us. 1/10. Their market cap is less than the market cap of the Bombay Stock Exchange. ये हमारा मुकाबला कब से करने लगा? Because we don't invest. We should have combat overmatch. And with China, it can be a symmetric deterrence on the back of technological innovation. Now, if you say technological innovation is not possible, may I point out that Ukraine, a country without a navy or an air force, has held Russia at bay for 3.5 years on the back of technological innovation, AI, quantum, all this stuff. It is day to day. Look what Alex Karp did there. And this is what makes a business minded entrepreneur different from the PSU kind of work ethos. When Russia attacks Ukraine, Alex Karp senses a business opportunity. So he tries to get in touch with Zelensky, doesn't get through. So he drives and walks across Poland and lands up in Kiev. And Zelensky is told that Alex Karp is here, CEO of that great company. So he has no option but to meet him. When he meets him, he tells him, Mr. President, the war is just starting. All I want from you is your data. And I will give you AI enabled services. So command and control, targeting, navigation. He gives it free. What does he do? He uses this data to make military products, selling in West Asia. He sold them in Gaza. He sold them in Rising Lion. He'll sell them across the world. Now, from his perspective, how it is wrong? How is it wrong? What the Ukrainians have got is a command and control system, which Patriot says is better than the American JATC. They have put AI into day-to-day engagements, fire, maneuver. They have developed an entirely new flank called dronery. I've been to that place. This year, Ukrainians are buying 8 million drones, more than the artillery they fired last year. Artillery is challenged. Tanks don't move, Hindol. Today, Russian soldiers are moving on improvisations, golf carts, motorcycles, because tanks are picked up and hit. And now the front lines are becoming lethal. In fact, Alex Karp and his friends, technological friends, have given Ukraine a new low aerial flank, which provides them close air support to strategic air power from 25 kilometers to 3,000 kilometers. I mean, this is a technological miracle. So something like that we can do with China. So technological innovation with China and combat overmatch with Pakistan. And my overall argument is not war fighting, it is deterrence. If we build these capacities, we will not need to war fight. The Chinese are not irrational actors. If they see strength, they will back off. It is when they see deficits that, they get greedy.
Quite right. In conclusion, I also want to ask you, there is a new, in a sense, a mini wave of startups in the defense arena emerging in India. There are drone startups, there are ammunition startups, and so on and so forth. You referred to some of them in the beginning of this conversation. How do you see that ecosystem?
So see, we have to do two things. Look at what the Chinese do. Look at the Chinese growth of military prowess. I'll just take 2 minutes on that. 2002, Chinese civil manufacturing capacities were half of those of the Americans. Civil. By 2024, civil manufacturing capacities value added become twice. In consequence, the Chinese military industrial complex today is 5 to 6 times more efficient than USA. So firstly, we should stop talking of military startups. The whole technological system has to grow, otherwise it will work. That's one point. See what it leads to. Because Chinese factories have robotics, they are the leaders in the next generation industrial robots. Their capacity is 7 times that of USA. Robots are now coming into the making of missiles and drones. So while the Americans have only 7 days of precision missiles for a Taiwan fight, the Chinese, based on their robotic capacities, have a surge capacities of 10,000 cruise missiles a week. 10,000 cruise missiles a week. So in our case, look what they did with with the EV space. They funded 2,000 companies liberally, the first 2,000 startups. Then they made them compete, Shanghai versus Beijing. And once that competition took off, then the law of the jungle kicked in. From 2,000, they selected just 3. The rest fell by the wayside. So it is also brutal. In our case, the startups have taken off. What I have been cautioning is that regulation should not come back. Indian argument typical क्या है bureaucracy की, सर अभी पैसा बढ़ा, अब स्टार्टअप सर 100 से 200 हो गए, सर अब इनको कंट्रोल करने की जरूरत है. So the vicious file will be back, the IFA will be back, and we will kill the innovation energy and enterprise of the startup. So we have to be very careful, and people in the system are that innovation should not be strangulated at the altar of regulation, because we are very good at regulation. अगर राज शुक्ला को बोलो कि 6 फाइल खोलनी है हिंडल को ठीक करने के लिए, मैं 10 खोल दूंगा. But if I tell you to help Hindol in his innovation, I will fall short of ideas. So that
Audit
should
भी
not.
तो होता है. Audit, we use audit as a weapon, you know.
तो वो नहीं होना चाहिए, वो डर है. अगर वो नहीं हुआ, बड़ी प्रतिभा है. You see, and look, you have to visit some of these startups, IIT Delhi and all, they are paying quantum engineers 8 crores. से कम में मिलते नहीं है. And they have got big ideas. Many of them will fail. You see, in our case, the whole system, as I say, even in the best system, is to minimize risk. It has to change to rewarding risk. तो अगर ये हो गया तब तो हमारे स्टार्टअप्स टेक ऑफ हो जाएंगे. अगर नहीं हुआ तो फिर regulation will once again reign and the startups will get killed. I am optimist on this. I see a lot of good things happening. I don't think regulation will take over.
Wonderful. On that optimistic note, I want to hold up your book once again, General Shukla, Civil Military Fusion as a Metric of National Power and Comprehensive Security. That's your book, which we discussed in this program today. Thanks very much for your time. It's a wonderful book. I read from cover to cover. Very, very interesting ideas. Thanks very much, General Shukla, for your time today. Thank you.
To get your friends and your acquaintances to buy this book, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
You.